think that would mean, Adani, we will start with you first. And my first question to you, well, why did you want to go to law school in the first place?
So I always had the inclination to want to go to law school, but I didn't know what that meant or what that looked like. And it wasn't until I think I got into college at Michigan State and started studying. I studied social groups and social movements and how they interacted with the government and how laws affected these different individuals. And I started to understand that the law affected everyone in a way that oftentimes people didn't recognize or impacted their lives on a daily basis. And I started to think, how can I make that impact, and how can I be someone that has this wealth of knowledge to then share to those individuals who might not understand. And so that was what sparked my interest for law school. And I started to realize that all of the things that I was interested in, as you heard me talk about, I work in kind of digital realm, and I also work on trademarks and business side of things. And so all of the things that I was interested in, I found that I could do through law school. So I knew that post-graduation from Michigan State, I had another 3 years ahead of me in law school. But now I am able to take the knowledge that I have and the interest that I have and share that information with as many people as possible. And I do that both in my daily work and in my personal firm work. And then I also am constantly learning. And so I find that a profession where I was able to always be always learn something, or always having an option to read more or find out something that I didn't know, definitely kept my interest and kept me on my toes. And it currently does keep me on my toes.
All the time, right?
Yes.
All right. Richard, we'll go to you. Why did you want to go to law school?
Well, I guess when I started high school, or I didn't always want to be an attorney, I'll put it that way. I think what kind of sparked my interest in the law was when in college, Kalamazoo College has a liberal arts education. And so you're required to take classes in different disciplines. Initially, I was going to be a doctor. Organic chemistry kind of did me in. And so I was looking for a new field. And so I took a couple poli-sci classes. One of them was constitutional law. And actually, I had a good professor, and I kind of fell in love with it, knowing some of the constitutional law precedents and how those helped people of color, and particularly help them, again, in segregation, helped us also move in a direction that allowed all of us to go to school together. So that kind of pushed me into that realm of wanting to go to law school and trying to make a difference in our society. So that is, in a nutshell, why I wanted to go to law school.
Yeah, organic chemistry has that effect on people. So
it does. It does. Not fun.
Regina, we'll go with you.
Is it the same question? Okay.
Yeah, same question.
Okay. So my interest in actually going to law school didn't happen until I was a teacher. I used to teach school in Detroit. I had taught 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade English and language arts. And at the time, a lot of my students were getting in trouble and things of that nature. So a judge by the name of Judge Greg Mathis, who is from Detroit, had given his story about how he was a juvenile delinquent who a judge helped him turn himself around and everything. And I thought to myself, that is something that I want to do one day. I want to be able to give my kids the opportunity to turn themselves around and be that person to help be a change agent in their lives. So I decided to take the LSAT and apply to law school. And that's how I got into law school. Before then, I was not interested in being a lawyer or anything like that. So that is basically my story of how I got interested in law. Like Richard, I too wanted to be a doctor. I went to Michigan State as a pre-med major. Chemistry too kicked my tail, and then I ended up changing my major to English secondary and secondary education. So that's my story.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't deal with the blood, so I was like, there was the potential of working on cadavers and things that was where I stopped. But I think that's actually kind of a common thing. There's a lot of lawyers who would have been doctors, or lawyers who think they're doctors now. My dad, but I'll get into that. James, you're next. Same question.
So I knew I wanted to be an attorney in high school through the mock trial program over at Kalamazoo Central, getting introduced to the field of law through that program just really kind of lit a fire into me that that's what I wanted to do. And particularly because I understood then that being an attorney allows you to be an advocate for people that don't necessarily have a voice in the justice system. So for me, the concept of being able to help, being able to be a resource for people it just spoke to who I am as a person. So I just enjoy the concept of being able to be the spokesperson and to advocate and help businesses, individuals, organizations that need help. And in the judicial system, you have ample opportunity to do that. And so that's really kind of my underlying driving force. First, being introduced to the field through that wonderful Kalamazoo Central mock trial program, and then seeing that it allows you to be an advocate for people really kind of spoke to me. And I've never looked back since. Although, even though I did start undergrad pre-med, because one thing that you don't know about law yet maybe is that you don't need a specific background, specific types of classes in college to go to law school. So in my mind, I thought, well, I've always thought medicine was cool. And then I ran into that chemistry class that Richard ran into and decided that's definitely not my field. And so I switched over to poli-sci and psychology for my undergraduate concentration. So that's me.
There's a running theme here, I think.
I know doctors that didn't like chemistry, so I think that is definitely a running theme. Thank you, James. All right, Judge Bell, you're next.
All right, I want to just accent what Attorney Liggins said. We in Kalamazoo have an absolute treasure, and we don't have all of our members here. And I just want to note, to accent what Attorney Liggins said, Sidney Williams, Attorney Sid Williams, was a copy and patent attorney, or is a copy and copyright and patent attorney here in town, who was also the first Black quarterback in the Big Ten at Wisconsin. And his undergraduate, I believe, was in engineering, and he's a good friend of mine, but I can't remember what his undergrad was. But like James said, you can have any sort of undergrad and still go to law school, because law school, and as Attorney Washington said, there are so many different types of lawyers, right? And so whatever background you bring to law school, it's going to help you in the various fields. And like Attorney Jones, she was a teacher, right? And so all of the experience and life experience you get, you bring that to law school, and then you bring that to practice. And so I just want to emphasize that there is not one road. There are several roads to that destination, and you can change your mind on the way. I was signing up for orientation at Michigan State. My ma had signed me up to go to pre-med. I went into orientation. I came out doing the pre-law program. So again, there is that theme going on. For me, after I finished undergrad at Michigan State, James Madison College, I didn't have really any money. Family didn't have any money, and so law school was certainly a reach. At least I thought it was a reach. Right. But I had applied, and I also, and this is one of the points I want to make, always have a plan and always have a backup plan and a third idea behind that. So my idea was I was going to shoot for law school. If I got in, great. If I didn't do that, I was going to join the military. And if I didn't do that, I was just going to be an entrepreneur. So, you know, having a plan in place is important. So, so for me, that's the reason why I went. I ended up getting into Iowa. And they gave me a great package. And I found it was not as a financial hardship as I thought it was going to be. And in fact, I paid more for my undergrad education than I did for my law school. So don't let that necessarily be a deterrent to you if that's what you may want to do. So.
Thank you. That was great, Judge Bell. I would just echo all of that. My story is my father practiced, and so I was kind of used to it from that perspective. I thought I was going to go into practice with him, and then that, well, let me start out. I had no intention of being a lawyer at all. I was in business, doing undergrad in business, and so I did management and marketing. As they said, you don't have to have done, you know, poli-sci, although a lot of people, you know, in law school definitely do that because, like James, they may have thought that that's what they wanted to do, and then they end up doing that. But I wanted to be an entrepreneur, like Judge Bell was saying. I was like, I'm just going to start businesses. I'm going to do this. And then as I was getting towards the end of college, everybody was going into investment banking at my school. And I was just like, that did not sound interesting. Or they were consulting. I still to this day can't tell you what a consultant actually does. I don't think they know. But I know this is being recorded, and I have friends who are consultants, so I apologize. But none of that was interesting to me. And, you know, being raised by an attorney, my uncle's a lawyer as well. I never really thought about it, but then I was like, okay, I think I do want to, you know, go to law school. But then what I ended up doing and what I thought I was going to do in terms of going to law school, that's actually the next topic that I was going to talk about, are two totally different things. And I will transition to that. I'll go first this time since I, you know, watched everybody else go before. But and the question that, I'm sorry, I've got visitors, just one moment. It was all good until it was my turn to speak, and they just like clockwork when to come in. Okay, so, but you know, multitasking is something I've learned to do during this pandemic. So, in any event, what I intended to do and what I ended up doing were two totally different things. And what I was going to ask everybody else was about what their experience was with that. I mean, I came into law school thinking I was like, I want to help people, I want to do all this, but then you get to the end and everybody's like interviewing with these big firms. And I was like, they're making how much? I said, okay, well, I can talk about helping people. I can help people. I can help businesses, like James was saying. And so I don't do that now, but that experience is invaluable because it absolutely helps me now in terms of, you know, negotiating and talking to businesses because I've been on the other side. So, you know, just because you start out one way doesn't mean you end up, you know, going down that path. And I actually ended up as a law clerk in federal court and deferring the offer that I had to go to a firm. Then I went to the same firm in a different city and ended up in Detroit. So that's how I ended up back in Detroit, because I told myself I was never coming back to Michigan after high school. And yes, that was not the case, but I mean, you guys might all feel like that too. But there's something about home, you know, and the people, and Michigan has some very good people, some of the best people. I've traveled, just telling my associate, I've traveled all over the world, and honestly, like, there's just some very good down to earth people from Michigan. I don't know what it is. But it, you know, there's home is home. So I hope you all, you know, decide to stay around, but I just wanted to toss that out to everybody here to just, you know, if you can just describe or kind of say whether or not I think you all kind of mentioned it or touched on it, but if you can say that you're doing or not doing what you intended to do when you went to law school. Let's start with Richard.
Thanks, Carla. And you are a business. You own your own. You own your own.
I felt like I was talking too much, so I wrap up all this stuff. I was like, I can fill up the time myself. I don't want to do that. So I was like, yes, I do. And I do business, and I represented a fine arts artist that from a couple of weeks. I'm a little bit spontaneous like that, but that's an aside. But yes, we'll get into that. Thank you, Richard. Go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, when I started law school, I think my primary goal was I think, God, what was I? I was going to do public defense. And then I actually took a internship with a prosecutor's office and decided that, they need people of color there as well, not just at public defender's office. And so that was the track that I went towards after law school, and started, like I said, I went to Cook County and became a prosecutor there in Chicago, and did that for quite a length of time, and then I actually went to work for the county, doing civil litigation, defending the county, the last couple of years when I was in Chicago. So now I'm transitioning from the public sector to the private sector. And I did a little bit of that when I was when I first came to Chicago, because I didn't have a job. And so I worked for a law firm, a boutique, which is a small law firm that just specialized in litigation. And then, like I said, became a prosecutor when I actually got hired. So yeah, you don't stay in one field, and so I think Mr. Liggins, he'd probably tell you what private practice is. I'm new to it to a certain respect. I haven't been out of it for some time, so it's again, you don't stay in the same field. You're not pigeonholed in one particular practice. You could move around and you can learn different areas of the law. And working for the city, I was able to do that, almost being a general counsel and things like that, and learning different areas of the law, not just prosecution. So I'm finding myself talking too much, and so at that point, I'm gonna probably kick it back to you, Carla. But yeah.
No, I mean, honestly, that's the interesting, part of it is that, and I did not realize there was a chat going on, so I apologize. And if you all want to put questions, feel free, because we're going to have time for questions, hopefully at the end. Oh, wait, he already said that. Okay, so that's exactly where I was going. I did not see that before I made that comment. But no, I think it's good to share that, because it seems like there's, might be some hesitation. It looked like Mr. Santilli was letting them know that it's okay to not know. I am certainly a fly by the seat of my pants type of person. Like if an opportunity comes up, I like to take advantage of it and try new things. Everybody is not like that and likes to have plans. I'm like the opposite of Judge. I'm not a planner. It's like, but things happen as they happen. And honestly, like with the pandemic, it's been, I've been able to feel okay despite all of like how awful it's been. That it's like, things happen for a reason, and you just try to make the best of situations, and, being flexible, I think will certainly help you in this business, because things will happen that, well, Judge Bell controls what happens now, but, for the rest of us, we, to a certain extent, for the rest of us, we all have to kind of, we're at the mercy of somebody else. The judge, if we're litigating, meaning we're in court, we're at the mercy of somebody else. And even if we're not in court, if we're representing people, just, everyday people or businesses outside, if they want a contract reviewed or something like that, we're still at the mercy of somebody else and what they want. So I definitely think that that's a skill you all, have to develop in general, is to learn how to deal with people and different personalities and all of that. So I think it's fun. But so I will go to Regina to answer the same question about whether you were doing what you thought you'd be doing or doing something different.
Absolutely not. I am not. So when I started law school, I was a member of BALSA, was the Black Law Student Association, and I got involved in entertainment and sports law for a moment, because I love sports and love entertainment. So I thought, hey, that would be great to, be a sports and entertainment lawyer, meet athletes and, make money and all that good stuff. And then I got pregnant with my daughter. I actually had both of my children while I was in law school. Would not recommend that one, but God is good. So I then changed, that changed how, what I needed to do with regards to after I graduated, I needed to get a job. So my internship, I was asked to come do an internship with Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, but they weren't hiring afterwards. They had put a hiring freeze on, and I'm like, hey, I need money, I got mouths to feed. So I ended up taking an internship in Battle Creek with legal services, and that turned into a job. So that all worked out. My parents live in Battle Creek, so that I kind of got a chance to be back there and spend time with them. When I was in law school, I had shadowed a criminal defense attorney, and I was like, no, I don't want to do criminal defense. But I've been doing criminal defense now for over 12 years, so that lets you know how that goes. And I actually really do enjoy defending people because unfortunately, I think here in Kalamazoo County, African Americans make up about 12% of the population, but 40% of the criminal cases. So that lets you know just the disparity within the justice system and so forth. It is such a need for advocates when people and people who are going to fight for people's rights. It is just, and that brings me a lot of internal joy and satisfaction to be able to help the disenfranchised and help people who are not able to help themselves. So I'm actually really enjoying the work that I do now here at the Kalamazoo Defender's Office. And but yeah, so that's long story short. Now started one way, and I'm still working towards my ultimate goal as well. So it's like, I believe, like someone said in the chat, it's okay not to know what you're doing or what you want to do. It's okay to change careers. I mean, you can change careers several different times. Just enjoy, just do what you're passionate at doing, and you will never really have to work a day in your life. That's what I was told, and that's what I believe. So that's that.
That's right. I definitely feel that way. I mean, even when I'm up super late doing things, it doesn't really feel like work when you're hopeful, hoping that it works out in favor of the client that you're advocating for. So for sure. I see, okay, the chat, Mr. Santilli is apparently trying to solicit questions. So if you all don't write on there, then I'm going to call someone out from the participant list to ask a question. So you can write them or you can get called out. I'm just letting y'all know that in law school they called it the Socratic method, and they would call on people, and it was the worst thing ever. And so to get around that, I volunteered, and it worked. So I'm just letting you all know. I'm telling that's for anybody going to law school. I wasn't sure, but I felt like if you spoke enough, then they won't call on you, and it did work. So if you all, just write your questions. Otherwise, I will randomly select somebody. I see some questions.
Could I
sure.
buy the students a couple of seconds by asking a quick question?
Sure. Oh no, I wasn't gonna toss to them yet. I still had a couple people to ask.
Oh, no, go ahead then.
No. Now go on right ahead. You're
all right. Well, now that I've taken over the show, my question was, so I'm Mr. Sandhu. I teach social studies at Kalamazoo Central, and what I was wondering, I had a question for Mr. Liggins. We have something in common. We're both members of the Kalamazoo Central mock trial team. I was a couple of years after Mr. Liggins. So what I was wondering is, because my students that are here with us today are all freshmen and they have 3 more years at Kalamazoo Central, I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on what your experience was like with mock trial, as far as, did it give you some sort of glimpse into what any sort of any part of practicing law was like?
Sure. I honestly think that my time on the mock trial team was very formative in forming my view of what the practice of law was going to look like. Now, for better or for worse, whether that was realistic or not realistic, it did form in my head what I thought law school was about. So I see a question here. Yes, it takes 3 years of law school to normally get through law school. So, but for my experience, so if you know what mock trial is, it's basically you take this fact pattern and you prepare both the plaintiff or prosecution side and the defense side of the case, and then your team goes prosecution or plaintiff side will go up against another team's defense side, and then you get rated on how realistic the performance is, how well the attorneys know their objections and themes and all of that. But the background is that you sit down with attorneys and others and you figure out what is the most realistic way to analyze and present a fact pattern. And so what you end up doing is you kind of really kind of get a primer for what the practice of law kind of looks like, certainly on the litigation side, and you get a primer or a primer on what terminologies are and how the law practice works in some sense. So for me, you know, I didn't grow up with a family that was professional. I had, you know, my parents worked for General Motors and Upjohn, you know, in the factories over there. So I didn't have anyone in my circle to introduce me to what law really was. So being able to walk into a law firm where these legal coaches were there and to see what the practice of law kind of looks like in the real was very eye-opening for me. And it really opened up this whole world of experience of, hey, this is something that I can do. Now, when I went to law school, quite honestly, I thought I had a little bit of heads up because I knew that the law practice is not a linear practice. As you've seen, a lot of people, kind of take a circuitous route to ultimately what type of practice they become. And so for me, I knew that already because I had already talked to various attorneys who said, hey, I started out in the FBI, or I started out as a police officer, or I started out in this area, and now look at me, I'm an attorney, that type of thing. So for me, it was very eye-opening. It was very kind of grounding, and it helped me to know that it was something that I wanted to do. Some of my teammates decided after mock trial that I absolutely do not want to be an attorney. And then others like me said, absolutely, this is something that I want to do. So it was very realistic. It was very grounding for me. And let me just add one other thing, and I'll be quiet. It brings together just about everything that you're learning right now. You know, you're learning analytical skills. You're learning how to work with people. You're learning how to articulate. You're learning how to write. Mock trial kind of brings all of those skill sets together in kind of one type of program. And so for me, I look back on it. For me, this is obviously a commercial for mock trial. I look back on it for me and I say, you know, had I not had mock trial, I think I would have taken a whole different route in my life as well. So no, I think it's a wonderful program, and it does give you realistic kind of understanding of the law as well.
Okay, thank you. And then you tossed it to James. I knew he was going to have a thorough explanation for what you asked him. So I wanted to, let me just ask, if it goes over, do we have time or do we need to stop right at 5 after?
So our students technically have a lunch break at 12:05. But what I will always do is for, we can wrap at 12:05. If there are some kids that have some burning questions before they go to lunch, we can also hang it on.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to get an idea. So we'll just wrap it up. I saw that there were a couple, so I just, at least for the people who did ask questions, that we, could get to them. But what I was going to do was ask Judge Bell to answer the question about whether this is something what you're doing is what you thought you would be doing. And then also there was a question about, the first question asked was about if littering counts if someone drops $1. I thought maybe you might be able to, does it count as littering if someone drops $1? So you can answer that along with your response.
Boy, that's a good question. I guess, yeah, anytime, even if the thing has value, if you intentionally toss it in a public space, that it would be littering. I would guess, but I think you'd be hard pressed for him to charge you with a crime. They'd probably pick it up and put it in their pocket. But you know, yeah, I guess technically it probably would be littering if it's in a public space. But so to answer your question, the original question, what do I think I am doing what I thought I was going to? Absolutely not. I never wanted to be necessarily a judge. The opportunity came up. I was involved in politics. I ran for office, state house. I was chair of the Democratic Party locally. I was very involved in advocacy. Like I said, I was a trial attorney. Our firm was doing great. And a position came open, and talked to my wife, talked to people I knew, and I put in, but it was certainly nothing I had ever thought I was going to be doing, honestly. Probably the furthest thing that I thought I was going to do. I thought when I went to law school, I studied international corporate law. So I thought I was going to be doing mergers and acquisitions all over the world. Didn't happen. And so that's where I ended up starting my own thing. So yeah, no, I did not think I would ever be on the bench.
Good answer. Good answer. All right. And I really appreciated the analysis put into that littering question. That's why you're the judge. And that's the law. All right. Adani, if you want to answer that question, the last question about whether this is what you thought you'd be doing.
So quickly, since I am the most junior attorney, this area that I'm currently practicing in is the area that I intended to practice in once I got to law school. As you've heard a lot of the other individuals talk, it is definitely something that can change after practicing and after gaining some experience. But I also always approached law in a different way. I didn't fully see it as it was something you had to be locked into being in a courtroom, or you had to specifically handle only one type of law for the rest of your life. And I think this conversation has been a very good indicator that the law is something that can lead you to a lot of different things. It allows you to take the time to learn different areas. And as Carla said, when there are different experiences that or opportunities that present themselves, this profession is one that allows you to kind of jump into those different opportunities and experiences, even if those are not something that you prepared for specifically or even knew about. And so I can say right now that I am doing what I thought I would be doing, but check in on me in 2 to 3 years and it could be something completely different. I would like to answer the question that was in the chat regarding about difficulties for law school. I went to law school directly after college, and part of that for me was thinking, 4 years of college, sure, 3 years of law school, no big deal. It should just kind of flow, and that was inaccurate. Law school itself is its own beast, and it was difficult. Even in undergrad, I did a lot of reading and writing and discussions. When I got to law school, it was times 10. It greatly surpassed anything I was prepared for or anything I thought would be what law school was. And so understanding that was a challenge I wasn't necessarily prepared for, it was one that I was willing to work through and actually stick with. I was so interested in what I was learning and asking questions. And at that level, your professors are readily available to discuss with you because they are truly experts in their practice area. And so it was difficult to also balance wanting to hang out with friends and just wanting to be 24. And just like, I was also in DC. And so there's tons of things to do. And so balancing that social life was also something that was difficult and it was tricky. But discipline is kind of something that, after 4 years of college, I thought I had discipline, but law school really instilled that in me. And it just makes me that much more excited to have these conversations and also more proud of what I've accomplished because I know how hard it was and how difficult it was to kind of get through it. But I figure on this end of things, I am enjoying what I'm doing. So it was well worth the sacrifice.
Attorney Akins, can I say something on that? I just want to add that it can also be very, very fun. I don't want to take away from that, because I had a ball when I was in law school, and the boss of the Black Student Law Student Association. You get real tight with the people you hang out with, and I was in Iowa. A lot of the folks I went to school with were out of Chicago, and we would go up to Minneapolis. And so, one time we went to Prince's nightclub. Prince was there because we were Boston students out of Iowa. He took us, invited his bodyguard, his chief bodyguard, invited us back to Paisley Park, which was his recording studio. And I got to party with Prince. No alcohol or anything. Got to dance at the recording studio. But that would never have happened but for being in law school, hanging out with my friends, and having the opportunity. So I'm just saying, it's not all, working the bone on the grind. So it can be really fun too.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, it's definitely a lot of work, but it's one of those things, like, I think going through it with other people certainly helps. And those are like your lifelong friends that you have, my law school classmates, that regardless of how long it's been since I've seen them or talked to them, like, you just have an instant bond, even with, people or judges sometimes that went to the same law school that you did or something like that. I mean, people certainly, remember that, and it's a learned and shared experience for sure. But I definitely I went to law school in Washington DC, at Georgetown, and we had a lot of fun, not even gonna lie. I was like but it was like, you work hard, play hard kind of thing. And I'll be honest, like, the first year, I shouldn't say this, but the first year I was reading a ton. And then after that, I probably was paying attention more in class as opposed to doing all of the reading that was required, just because it could be a lot sometimes. But you find ways to make it manage. Some people never went to class and they just studied and did the exams and things like that. I mean, everybody had to have their own way kind of getting through things. But honestly, I wouldn't change it for the world. I love being an advocate. Honestly, reading legal speak is hard. It's like a different language for a lot of people. So being able to read contracts that people sign, or tell, waivers that you get from, like, the gym, or if you go skydiving or something like that. I mean, all those types of things, it certainly helps to have that as a background, even if you don't practice. I saw a question in there about what are some of the different kinds of lawyers.
Hey, Carl, I'm going to interject
real
quick. I have to sign off. I have to go to a meeting, but it's been a pleasure to be in this group with everybody. And also, all the teachers and the students who are doing this via Zoom, kudos to you. I have kids in the other room that's doing it. Hang in there. Next year, hopefully be in person, but good to see everybody, and great job to the teachers and the students. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. I know, so we have to wrap up, but I just wanted to thank anybody that has to leave, feel free to go. But anyone who did want to hear the answers to any of the questions that were asked, we'll go ahead and answer those, or give you an opportunity to ask them out loud if you want to, if that's okay, Mr. Edwards. Okay. All right. So somebody asked about the different kinds of lawyers that there are. Regina, do you want to answer that?
Yes, so I quickly sent, I've been kind of following the chat and trying to respond to questions that I've seen in the chat. So I'm just going to say I would say there's probably not really any field that of professional field where you don't have a lawyer, or a lawyer is not involved in some way, shape, or form. And I kind of put down education. I mean, high schools, school districts have lawyers. They do everything from advising them on with regards to personnel to just education law and so forth. Doctors have lawyers, hospitals have lawyers for the medical field, businesses, just like Carter stated, contracts, acquisitions, all of those require lawyers. So, I mean, you can literally use your JD. You don't have to, and you can go to law school and not become a lawyer. That JD, that Juris Doctorate, you can utilize that to work in any field as well. Being a consultant, Carla, that just made me laugh. But pretty much, there's, like I said, lawyers, real estate, just criminal, family, probate, all areas, their lawyers are there pretty much throughout anything you do for the most part. So anything you can think of, I think Adani, like she said, she's doing trademarks, and you know, if you're trying to brand a company, you want to protect your brand, you know, you can get a lawyer to do your trademark and make sure that no one can utilize your name or your brand. And if they do, they will have to pay you. So those type of things. But yeah, lawyers, we're everywhere.
Thank you. So there's still people dropped off. I watched the numbers go down. I was like, there's still people on. That means I think that, well, Abraham, sorry, I'm calling you out. He left as I was saying that, but no, I appreciate you all sticking around. So I assume there were questions that you wanted to have answered, or you are interested in what we have to say. The next question I see is about whether we've had to deal with racism in the courtroom. If so, what was it, and how did you handle it? As you all probably know, racism is hard to say. I mean, unless somebody's calling you, you know, a slur or something like that. And I have not had that happen in the courtroom. So I can't speak to that. I don't know if anyone else has had anything overt like that. There's certainly, I mean, I do jury trials, and I can tell by the way, you know, the comments that I've gotten from the jurors afterwards about things about my clients, or things even that opposing counsel might have said, meaning opposing counsel being the other lawyer on the other side. I had a case where they brought up that the person had a social worker come to see them in the hospital and had food stamp. This was like an auto case where she had, like, her mouth was bleeding, and she was 7 months pregnant, had gone walking up, like, pleading with somebody to help her, and they were disputing that there was an accident at all. And they were bringing up anything they could to make it seem like you don't want to give this woman money because she doesn't deserve it, is basically how it was. And then during my closing argument, I said something along the lines, I don't remember what I said, something about being prejudiced or something like that. And the lawyer, like, shot up, is prejudice? And I said, no. I said, you brought up food stamps and all these other things, and I just don't think it's appropriate in this type of a case, you know, Your Honor, because the judge asked me, yes, what did you mean? So I had to answer that, and then he let me go on with my questioning. And if you probably have seen on TV, you're not really supposed to jump in when people are doing, you know, openings and closings. They usually let you speak or whatever. Judge Bell can speak to that. But that happened, and we won the case. And, you know, the jurors came up to me afterwards and said, you know, they thought that what he was doing was basically trying to be, you know, prejudiced. And it was clear that he was suggesting it. So you have that type of thing. But, you know, that's part of being an advocate, is just to be able to see those types of things and address them when you can. I'm very open when I've been in a deposition where somebody wanted to use the N-word, and I asked them not to. Most of the time they won't do that while I'm there. But I have had, you know, situations where we've had to address things, and I just let people know that, you know, language is not acceptable to me, and they respect that, and we just move on. So I don't know if anybody else has anything about that, or we can answer the next question.
I just want to say it is absolutely imperative that we as a community become lawyers, become judges, become principals, become teachers. You need to be in positions so that you can bring your worldview to the table, because my worldview is different than many of my colleagues' worldview. The experiences I've had are different than their experiences. And you need to be at the table. You need to be there, period. So that's all I'm going to say.
Anyone else? Okay, go ahead, Regina.
I will say something that I get a lot, especially in counties on the western side of the state, more conservative counties coming in, is, oh, I didn't know you were a lawyer, because oftentimes they're not used to seeing African-American woman attorney. So just recently here, and I had been coming in, some of the deputies already knew me, but there was, you know, a new person on the door and I didn't have, you know, a badge or anything. I had a briefcase. I had a suit on, but it was one of those, you know, I always show my bar card, you know, when I'm in a new jurisdiction, because again, you get that oh, I didn't know you were an attorney. And so, and I have yet, I'll put it this way, seen one of my white colleagues been told that, oh, I didn't know you were an attorney, when they've had their briefcase and their suit on. So you show grace to people, is the way I do it. You can easily get upset and get mad and be like, oh, get an attitude. But I just feel like people who know better do better. And so I just try to, pack some grace and say, yes, I am an attorney, and keep it moving. But I had one other case that I was actually accused of. A Batson challenge was presented because they accused me of trying to stack the jury with Black jurors. And so that was quite interesting. But, I just simply argued, my client was, African American, and he had a right to a jury of his peers. So that's, but yeah, you just, you got to understand that there are ignorant people in this world, and you don't need to respond with ignorance. Just, again, grace, and, if you feel like trying to educate them, do that too. But yes.
That's exactly how I feel, honestly, because, you're going to encounter things, and some stuff, like I said, is going to be overt, and other things may not be, but you know when you know, and you just kind of have to say, okay, and keep it moving. But to whatever everyone has said, it really is about representation and just us being present and in the room, because, even, a judge, they may not know. I mean, you can only have the world perspective that you have. They're not going to know sometimes until you educate them on what is happening. That's the reason we're advocates, because we're actually telling them, this is what's going on. This is what happened here. I do employment law, so I deal with racial discrimination a lot. I saw something about crazy cases. This is being recorded. I'm not even going to get into some of them. Some of them are just not appropriate for high school. Some of the things that the adults, are doing out here at work. But a lot of it involves having to sometimes educate the court on what a microaggression is. They don't understand that that may not seem racist, or that even another Black person could actually be not, if you say that they're being racist, but they can uphold institutions of racism in their jobs and have been put in a position to do that. Because I see a lot in the briefs, it'll say in parentheses, they think it's race, so we're going to just mention the race of everybody. But it's very clear that they're intending to put the race of the supervisor, so that the judge will see, oh, this person is Black, that person is Black. Well, they couldn't have discriminated. And sometimes they make that argument, so you see those types of things all the time. It comes up a lot. But, we just try, like Regina said, you just try to handle it with grace. And, knowing is like half the battle. Once you already kind of know what to expect, you just go into it like, okay, you don't think I'm an attorney? Fine. Here's my bar card. Let me in, that type of thing. So, what else do we have? What else? Does anybody want to say their question? I don't know if any of these people are still here, that might want to ask one of their questions out loud, or speak to us. Love to hear from you. Otherwise, I'm going to call on a student.
I think everyone has started to head towards lunch.
Okay, all right. Well, Ciante has been very vocal. Is it he? I didn't know if he wanted to. He's been chatting a lot, so I thought maybe he might want to. I don't know if he's still there. Is he not?
Yeah, probably. I think
he might have left. They all left. Okay, all right. Well, if there aren't, he said, I'm just gonna pretend that I know what that means. You're funny. Okay. If you do have a question, Ciante, you can, I don't know how to unmute, or I'm sure that you all know how to use Google Meets now and stuff like that. You are more than welcome to jump in and, ask a question or whatever. But otherwise, if anybody else has anything else, or we'll just wrap it up.
I think Ciante, I think he was referencing, he'll just pretend, because he asked about bond, and I said bond and bail are synonymous. That just means they're the same. Usually we use those words interchangeably with regards to posting a bond or posting bail. So that's what I meant by that when I said that they are synonymous. And bail, there was a question about what is bail. Bail usually is just a guarantee that a person is going to return to court. It's money that you post. You know, people tend to think that you're not going to leave your money on the table. So you have to post money, you're going to come back to court so you don't lose your money. So that's pretty much what bail is. It's just a guarantee that a person is going to come back for their future court dates. And usually if they fail to appear, they will lose their money.
Right. Ciante, you might have a future in this, and at least in comedy, because you're funny. So, all right. Well, we'll wrap up. We won't take anyone else, especially through lunch. You got to eat. So thank you so much for having us. This was really a lot of fun.